and welcome to the 40 Top Virtual Series. I'm Sarah Payne Scarborough with the Alliance for the Economic Development of Southern West Virginia. I'm one of your moderators today as we discuss going to college. Whether you're in high school or you're out in the field working, higher education offers many opportunities to sharpen your skills and develop new expertise. However, there is a transition. I remember my college days at Marsh University and while I absolutely loved my experience, it was hard to juggle working full time, going to class, being with friends and family. In this segment, we're going to explore the transition to higher ed and give you some helpful tips and resources that can assist you in your journey through college. Before we get started, I'd like to take an opportunity to discuss our hosts, the Alliance for the Economic Development of Southern West Virginia. The Alliance is a higher education collaborative made up of 2- and 4-year higher education institutions. If you look at a map, our footprint is Mason County, Webster County, Clay County down. We have a 21 county footprint. We represent about 30,000 students in Southern West Virginia. We are project-based and results-driven. This 40 Top Virtual Series is just one of our important projects. We started 40 Top back in April 2020, right when the pandemic really hit West Virginia. We wanted to link our residents directly with state experts and leaders. These sessions are informal and conversational, and we are pleased to announce that more than 1,600 West Virginians have participated in this series. We've hosted more than 20 conversations with 50 plus leaders. Now, the other Alliance projects include our annual Small Communities Big Solutions Conference, which is a state update and a celebration of what is working well in the Mountain State. This conference happens every November, so save the date and join us next November. We just started our statewide student leadership conference, and about 250 students from West Virginia participated. West Virginia Solution Seekers is open to all juniors and seniors in high school and all training and college students. Our next conference will be our spring in 2022. The Alliance gives out scholarships. We work with industry to connect our students with jobs. We can conduct an annual business leader survey. We host many important conversations on how to grow our state's workforce and our economy. We also host the West Virginia Collegiate Recovery Network, which is actively on 7 campuses in Southern West Virginia, and we partner with a couple of institutions in the northern part of our state as well. Our program coordinator, Susie Mullins, is our other moderator for today. Susie, it's great to be with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the network and why you think today's conversation is so important?
Welcome. Sure, Sarah. Welcome, and thanks to all of our panelists for being here today. The Collegiate Recovery Network is, as Sarah said, a network of schools around the state, and really our mission is to provide recovery support services to individuals that are in recovery, seeking recovery, or may be impacted by somebody else's use. So we want to make sure that students have the support they need as they transition and as they retain their student status throughout their academic career. I think this is really important because for people re-entering, a lot of people start college, find themselves in the throes of an active substance use disorder, have to take a leave of absence. And when it's time to come back, it can be really scary. Sometimes it's not an environment that they're completely comfortable with, but they want to pursue more education and further themselves. So this is really important that we're here to talk about the resources that are available for individuals that might be transitioning, coming back to school after having left school, or for students that are just coming to school, maybe first generation, maybe impacted by someone else's use, a family member or friend. So these are really great resources for us to share.
Wonderful. So now let's get to it and hear from our expert panel. First, we will hear from West Virginia Superintendent of Schools, Clayton Burch, with more than 25 years of experience as an educator and in education leadership, Superintendent Burch truly cares about our students and our state. Superintendent Burch, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll give you a few minutes to speak on this important topic.
Sarah, thank you so much, and I appreciate you and Susie doing the opening and inviting Chancellor Tucker and I to be part of this. And you know, when you invited me to talk on the transition to higher education and what our students will go through, you know, it's kind of like I've got to tackle this in two parts. One is I've got to, you know, really look at what our students today are facing during the pandemic and how difficult it's been. But, you know, that is difficult, and transition to higher education and making those really key decisions is difficult even before the pandemic. So, you know, one thing that I've been out and about talking to young people during the pandemic is what has made this so difficult this year in making these really key choices. And I think what you'll hear from both Chancellor Tucker and myself is that I continue to say and have said one caring adult. Each one of these students, no matter how old you are, whether you are in middle school, whether you're in high school, or as Susie just said, whether or not you're making that choice in recovery or sometime in life to come back to higher education, you really need that one caring adult that really cares for your future and can help you with that transition. And I think what our young people have seen here lately is when school was not in session, we did not have that connection, that strong connection to that one caring adult that was going to be there to answer those questions and really assist us in things like making a decision. Do I want to go to 2-year, 4-year, filling out my FAFSA? And the interesting thing is how powerful schools are when we can be with our instructors in person. We knew that throughout this entire school year, Chancellor Tucker and myself have been saying, you know, our FAFSA numbers were down. I kept telling students, you cannot let the pandemic put your future on hold. And lo and behold, we moved January 19th to putting more students in class. Here recently pushed to 4 and 5 days of instruction. And within that last week of the deadline for FAFSAs, we saw FAFSA completions skyrocket, almost cut the deficit in half. And I have to truly believe that when we are around and near those one caring adults, when we got children back in school, it made the world of difference of helping them get back on track. And, you know, I look at what these students face, and I look at myself as a state superintendent, and I find that during these times, I've relied on all of those folks that are caring adults to me. And, you know, Sarah Payne, I would put you in that category to reach out and include folks like me in these conversations. That just shows that level of care, that we really care about these topics. And, you know, Sarah Tucker has been one of the best friends, one of the best advocates for our young people in the state, because she has stepped to the plate since March with me, ensuring that we tackle things like food insecurity, tackling things like we have to continue focusing on these young people's transitions and the decisions they're going to have to make. And it's been so, during this pandemic, it's just been so happy. It's been so a relief as a state superintendent to see our college leaders really focusing and stepping up during this pandemic to put a focus on our students' needs and really just caring about what those decisions are. But we have to remember that our students are not only making these tough decisions during the pandemic. Prior to 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were already a state in crisis. 7,000 plus of our students were in foster care. We led the nation in opioid deaths. Our students were struggling oftentimes prior to the pandemic. And because of the pandemic, we know that the issues they faced were just exacerbated. The stress levels were increased. So, you know, we've got to double down. We have to make sure that we're helping these students identify and support them in those decisions, how important college is to their future, how important getting certification in a career technical college or a career technical education center is, how important getting enrolled into the military so that their future has a pathway. And I think the best thing we can do right now is looking forward to how difficult transitions are, help our students understand we care, and help them identify those pathways that each one of them need to a future. And I would definitely want to be one of those one caring adults for these students. And I know that the folks on this call do too. So Sarah, with you and Susie, I cannot thank you all enough.
Well, we really thank you, Superintendent, and your staff. You've been extremely accessible. This is like the third 40 top, I believe, that you've appeared on sharing information about the state, and we really just appreciate you very much and your team. So with that, I'll go to the next speaker, who is also a true advocate of higher education and of students. As Chancellor for the Community and Technical College System in West Virginia and Chancellor for the Higher Education Policy Commission, Sarah Tucker understands the vast opportunities that higher education presents to families of the Mountain State. Chancellor Tucker, welcome to 40 Top. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll allow you to make a few comments.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Sarah and Susie for putting this together. I'll echo Clayton's comments. These have been terrific things to do, and I'm happy and pleased to be a part of them. I think what the superintendent said earlier is really important for everybody to keep in mind. One of the things that this pandemic has done is that it's made people stop thinking about the future. They're so worried about the here and now, what's happening at this moment. Am I going to go to class? Am I not going to go to class? Do I get to hang out with my friends? Do I not get to hang out with my friends? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to get my parents sick or my grandparents sick? That they haven't been planning for their future, and they haven't been thinking about what the fall will look like for them. And so all of us in higher ed have a lot of concerns about what that's going to look like for our first-time freshman class. As the superintendent said, our Fafsa numbers and our promise numbers were really, really low. In fact, I think at the beginning of February, our promise completion number applications were down by 57% or 52%, something like that. And as the superintendent said, he has been this incredible partner with us. He's allowed me to participate in calls with all of the county superintendents, guidance counselors, principals. He's let us talk to everybody that he could possibly give us access to so that we can talk about this problem and talk about how we need to be able to get these applications up. And in fact, once those students went back to school, in just a few week time period, we closed that gap from 52% to 27.5. That's huge. And that is entirely because of the partnership between K-12 and higher ed. And I couldn't be more thankful for the superintendent for that relationship. But I do want to talk a little bit about Fafsa completion and how difficult it can be for students to complete the Fafsa, and go back to something that Susie was talking about earlier. And I apologize for all of those of you who are listening. I have a train that's passing my office, so you're probably going to hear that over me. We have a problem in the state, as you all know, and as Bonnie will talk about here in a bit, with drug addiction and with kids who are in families or being raised in different types of family structures, and family structures where perhaps a legal guardianship hadn't been taken for a student. And so I went to a high school now about 2 years ago and spoke about the importance of going to college. And at the end of that conversation, I had 7 students approach me and tell me that they couldn't fill out their FAFSA because they were living with a grandparent or with an aunt or with an uncle because their parents were addicted to drugs. And they weren't able to fill out their FAFSA because they weren't able to get the kind of information that they needed from their families. I want students to know that we heard that. We heard you say that. And filling out the FAFSA is a requirement for all state financial aid. And so we asked the legislature, and they agreed to pass a bill, House Bill 4737 in 2020, that allowed us to waive the requirement of the FAFSA. So if a student finds themselves in this type of familial situation, and I want the higher ed institutions to understand this too, if they find themselves in a situation where for no fault of their own, they're not able to fill out their FAFSA, please reach out to us. Please don't let that get in your way for going to college. I would hate to see a student who has worked so hard and overcome so many trials and tribulations in their life to get to the point of wanting to enroll in college and going to fill out that form and saying, I can't fill it out. I guess that means I don't get to go to college. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. we can waive those requirements. And so I really I ask that you reach out to us. I would like you to go to our portal, our cfwv.com portal that talks about all of the incredible financial aid opportunities that are available to students. You can sign up for our text messaging program where you can literally text questions to folks in our office who will be able to answer questions about going to college. We're trying in every way that we can to make sure that students have the opportunity to be able to matriculate to college, whatever that looks like for them, a community college, a baccalaureate institution, any option. And we'll be able to provide them with that information. And so with that, Sarah, I think I will turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Chancellor. And really, your team has put in place like the texting, the chatting. You can get your questions answered, and that is something really helpful to the families. So we thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to my co-moderator today, Susie. Take it away.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you, Superintendent Burch, for mentioning that that one supportive person, and that's a perfect tie-in to introducing Ms. Bonnie Dunn, who is the project co-director of West Virginia Healthy Grandfamilies. Bonnie has been leading this project for a number of years and has reached hundreds of families across the state, and I believe undertook a statewide expansion of this program before COVID hit. So Bonnie, welcome, and if you'd like to unmute yourself and turn your camera on so we can see you, wonderful. Welcome, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us a bit about the Healthy Grandfamilies program?
Yes, and thank you for including me and this initiative into this discussion. I did meet with the Chancellor, I guess, about 1.5 years ago, because we were experiencing a lot of problems with grandchildren, children who are being raised by their grandparents, not being able to complete the FAFSA. And of course, that was just one piece of the very large puzzle. For those of you who may not know anything about the Grandfamilies program and services now, it's far more than a program. It's 6 years old. It started out as a pilot for 3 years. We did a wonderful pilot in Kanawha and some surrounding counties. And during that, we served 125 cohorts of grandparents raising grandchildren. We found out so many things about these families, and I will direct you to healthygrandfamilies.com. There's a document there called Lessons Learned, which you can read and quickly find out what is stressing and is creating so much havoc with these families. One of the biggest things that we have discovered as we've moved forward is that these grandparents mostly have the grandchildren by default. They didn't come to them through the system as in CPS. And there's absentee parents floating all over this state or world. And grandparents have not known where to turn to. And now they have a point of contact. And the problem with that is us getting the word out. And that's where I'm going to direct a couple of things to Superintendent Burch, because I really need to get a meeting scheduled with him, because we discovered in the 3-year pilot that the single most important partner we could have is the school system. And as we move to 55 counties, the legislature has been funding us the last 3 years. And they asked that we put this program model in all 55 counties. We've developed coalitions in every county. We have coalition coordinators. But there are many counties that we don't have the strong partnership with the Board of Ed that we really need, because we discovered the only way we can get to these grand families is through the school system and through their grandchildren who are in the school system. These grand families do not know they have a point of contact. They do not know that there is a service there that can help advocate for them, intervene for them, find them resources. And there are many, many resources, from money clear through to the last one that I quote a lot anymore is finding dentures for grandma and grandpa. We've done some very strange things, but it's through the work of our social workers and the network we have of them across the state who help with this advocacy. And then embedded in this, we have a program, and it's 8 weeks of education, of discussion, of bringing experts on topics in such as legal aid of West Virginia. And legal aid really has helped the families a lot in terms of identifying some of these things with getting the guardianship before House Bill 4737 came about, so that these children would be able to complete the FAFSA previously. And there's many, many other reasons why the grandparents need to have guardianship beyond the FAFSA. And so we do all these things. We inform them, we educate them, we link them to services and resources. And with the pandemic, we've continued to serve them, even though we haven't been able to do face-to-face. A lot of phone calls. And I will tell you, I have purchased more postage in the last year than I have, I think, in my entire career in education, which is going on 50 years, because we've had to go back to the old system of mailing things to these families. Number-wise across the state, the most recent statistics that I have currently, and it's still old, is like 2015, 2017, that we had about 45 to 50,000 children in the state being raised by grandparents. And I can safely say that's at least double, because as numbers have come in from counties and actually from some of the boards of education, and they look at this map, this statistical map, they say there's no way. That thing is so far off that it's really sad. And each day we get more and more and more, because the higher the drug rate goes, so goes grandfamilies. Now, and I'm just talking about grandparents raising grandchildren. I'm not talking about kinship care or children in foster care. And so I know it's an enormous problem, but foster care has been advertised, and people know how to access that. Somewhat kinship care with Mission West Virginia, but specifically grandparents raising grandchildren, they have been completely overlooked in this state. We are second in the nation of the percentage of children being raised by grandparents. So I'm really thankful that you folks have invited me in to talk about this. We've got to do something, and I really feel like our program, our services need to have a stronger partnership with the entire state of West Virginia's educational system. And with COVID and everything, I probably would have already tried to get a meeting with you, Superintendent, but it has been crazy for all of us. And just between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I wrote $25,000 in emergency funding for families that were in desperate need. We distributed that to those families. It's been difficult, it's been challenging, but it's also been rewarding. So I appreciate being part of this. I just think I need to see that the Grandfamilies concept gets a stronger partnership across the board with folks in the state that can help us move this and get the word out to these grandparents that we can help them. And a lot of that is in educational services about where are these children going to, because let's face it, folks, grandparents, and by the way, we have a significant number of great-grandparents, and we have a number of great-great-grandparents raising great-great-grandchildren. So with that generational gap, many of those grandparents did not go to higher ed. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandparents had an 8th grade education, and me saying I wanted to go to West Virginia State College to become a home ec teacher was something like, they looked at me like I had, 2 heads. But they said, if this is what you want, my great-grandmother was a school teacher, so my grandfather was on board with me becoming a teacher. And they supported that effort, but it was not easy. Even in that day, it wasn't easy. The story hasn't changed. It just has some different tones to it today. And so I'm really advocating on behalf of these families. I'm trying to give them a voice. And I am here to support whatever can be done to enhance this and help these children get an education, whether it be higher ed, vocational, whatever the training is that they need to become our citizens of the future.
Thank you, Bonnie. That was really powerful, and I'm sure piqued a lot of interest among the panel, and I'm sure of our audience. So if there are grandparents out there watching this and they haven't heard about your program, how can they get in touch with somebody and receive some of that education and access to the resources?
Every county has a coalition and a coalition coordinator. The best way would be probably to contact my office or me through email. And I know that a lot of people do not do internet, so referring them to healthygrandfamilies.com. If they do, the list of statewide offices is located there, or call my office at Institute, West Virginia State University, 304-204-4007. And we will be happy to direct them to their county coordinator. And if they're in Kanawha County, I'm actually, in conjunction with the Kanawha County Board of Education, one of the coordinators for Kanawha County. So not only do I run the statewide program, but I'm pretty much running Kanawha County along with John Duffy and Eddie Ivey from the Board of Education.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all that you do for the families, and in turn what the families do for the kids. Our next guest is Rhonda Bills, and she is a community support specialist with the Modify program. Welcome, Rhonda. And I know that you will just be joining by audio today. And so welcome to the panel. And would you tell us more about the Modify program and the services that are available to help foster children?
Yes, Modify is a program that through West Virginia University Center for Excellence in Disabilities, we've contracted with the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources to help foster care youth adopted from foster care after the age of 16, or youth who have gone in legal guardianship after the age of 16, to transition from high school to post-secondary education. We have funding available to help these youth meet their educational costs. We also help them apply for all state and federal benefits through the FAFSA or any state aid. We verify the foster care tuition waiver for the youth. The foster care tuition waiver is a piece of legislation through West Virginia. It's House Bill 4784 that says that all public universities in West Virginia will waive a portion of the tuition for foster care youth who aged out of custody, who was in custody for a year prior to graduating, and who apply within 2 years of graduating from high school. The tuition waiver covers most of the tuitions at most of our public schools, but not all of the tuition. That's where the federal financial aid, the Pell Grant, the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, which is a state grant, and Modify has up to $5,000 per federal fiscal year to use toward a post-secondary education. And I say up to $5,000 because if the school says that the youth doesn't need the whole $5,000, we can only award up to what the school says the youth needs. As long as the youth maintain a 2.0 and an 80% completion rate, they can continue to receive these funds till age 26 or for 5 school years, whichever comes first. We help these youth transition. As you know, many foster care youth age out without a support system. We are acting as the financial and emotional support system for these youth. If they contact us and they have problems meeting the academic needs of the school, we can get in there, we can do an assessment, and we can get either the free tutoring through the schools or the specialized tutoring. We can help pay for specialized tutoring through the schools if the ETV funds are available. ETV stands for Education and Training Voucher Funds. We also help. Through the pandemic, we have been hopping busy because when the dorms shut down, we help these youth get into apartments or get into other stable housing. We've also helped with foster care youth. They don't do well with online learning due to PTSD, and other things. They just don't do well with online learning. So then we try to set them up with community resources to help them manage the online learning that has been mandatory. We try to hook them up with supports in the community that might be able to help them. We also advocate with the professors in the schools for special circumstances to help these youth get caught up and to help them be successful in their post-secondary education. West Virginia is very fortunate that we have such a diverse variety of learning experiences for our youth. Not all states have this. For example, most of our vocational schools have higher education programs. Our youth seem to do better with in-class and on-hands learning. So many of our what are considered vocational programs in other states are actually post-secondary educations in West Virginia. And what that means is you can get the same kind of training for a vocational degree, but you have access to the post-secondary funding. Modifies education and training voucher. The schools have to be verified as a post-secondary program, which means if they get the Pell Grant, then we can use our funds to help them. And that's not the same in other states. For example, in my area, we have Cabell Votech program, and Cabell Votech has several post-secondary educational programs for mechanics, for certified nursing assistants and things like that. And they do qualify as post-secondary programs. Therefore, they can get more funding for those programs. That's not the same in other states. So I'm fortunate that we have this in West Virginia because many of our foster care youth do better with those in-class hands-on learning type of things. We can help with their college expenses, like I said, till they're age 26 or they've used 5 school years of funding up to a bachelor's degree. Beyond a bachelor's degree, and I've had many of my students, I'm so thankful, we've had many students that go on to their master's degrees. Then we try to help those who are going on beyond our program find opportunities to help them support a master's degree program.
That's wonderful. I had no idea so many services were available through that program. And, you know, we've talked with Bonnie just a few minutes ago about the number of youth that are in care with grandparents, but, you know, we know the significant number of youth that are in our foster care system. So this is yes, a very a substantial resource. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me.
So next is Tahnee Bryant. She's a program manager with the West Virginia DHHR Bureau for Behavioral Health, Children and Families, and oversees the services for transitioning youth. Welcome, Tahnee, and we're looking forward to hearing about the resources available through your program.
Hey, hi. Thank you all so much for having me. I just want to say, first and foremost, I'm an educator. My undergrad is in elementary education. And then I just recently, prior to coming to the Bureau after leaving a comp for over 20 years, I worked as a faculty member at Southern Community and Technical College for 3 years. So I got the opportunity to work hands-on with college students from a variety of backgrounds and talk with students about what their unique needs are. Some were common, and so I'm very excited about this opportunity and to see everyone coming together to help address needs for college students. One of the things that I wanted to point out that we're talking a lot about services, and I'm going to go into some of the services that we have from our Bureau to help students. I wanted to just note that while these are children's services, we do have adult services, and I'm in the children's office. There are a lot of college-age students that are young parents. I had a lot of students under the age of 21, under the age of 25 that had little ones in the home. And the parents were struggling with mental health issues of their own. And then they were having issues at home with their children. So that impacted their ability to attend classes, whether it was online or live, complete assignments, be present to where they could actually understand and comprehend what was the instruction provided to them, and to be able to even perform well on assignments or tests. So one of the things that I always liked to do with my students was, and I feel it's very important for instructors and faculty members, is to get to know your students and to take time to start recognizing those early warning signs when a student is struggling, whether they just do not seem to be actively engaged in class or online learning, or they're starting to miss classes or turn in assignments, or they start gung-ho at the first of the semester and then you start to see that downward trajectory, and to intercede as quickly as possible and take time to reach out to that student and say, hey, do you have a minute? And to come see me, and make time to talk to that student and see what you can do to offer to help the student. At our Bureau, we have a number of programs that are geared around children's mental health and around substance use. We have the Children's Mental Health Wraparound Program that serves up to age 21, and keep in mind that this might be for youth that are transitioning into higher ed, or it might be youth that have young children in their home that are impacted with a mental health disorder. And Wraparound comes in and it helps to support that youth in their home and community and school setting by providing and linking them to any resources that they might need that helps to sustain them and prevent any kind of disruption in their home placement or being removed from home. We have our children's mobile crisis that comes out, and the family defines the crisis. We do not define the crisis, the family defines the crisis. And these are all statewide programs, so they're offered within all our state. And I'm going to type our Bureau's specific link to our children's page in the chat so that you can share that. We have regional youth service centers that serve up to age 25. What's unique about the regional youth service centers is that it provides a variety of services for individuals that might have a serious mental health illness, first episode psychosis. It provides outreach and assistance to youth and young adults and families, peer support from someone with lived experience. We know, and Susie, you know, how valuable that is to have that peer support from someone who's lived it and been there, and link those young individuals with that. Youth suicide intervention, family coordinators that can work with the family. And we're getting ready to launch in partnership. We're going to, with a grant with the West Virginia Center for Excellence in Disabilities in Morgantown, for a statewide initiative for regional youth transition coordinators. These are specific transition coordinators that are going to work with individuals up to age 25, ages 14 to 25, so we can start early, that are in foster care, have a mental health diagnosis, substance use disorder, in recovery, co-occurring, aging out of foster care. And that program is going to, similar to Modify, but of course, the targeted population has to meet the criteria with the mental health diagnosis or substance use high risk, by providing them with direct linkages to resources, helping them learn to navigate the system, helping them to connect with natural supports, helping them things like we already talked about, how to, the steps that you need to take to get into college, coping skills, life skills, linking them to services so that they do not become overwhelmed with everyday life stresses that would cause them to drop out of college. Because we see that a lot happening is, You know, the youth, they start and they have all the best intentions, and then the stress of everyday life just wears them down. And by midterm, there it is. But we don't want to see that. We want to be able to continue to provide resources that help the individual to live an independent life, full, and be able to achieve their goals. So those are just a few of the programs that are in children's. Adults have very similar programs, from community engagement specialists to peer support for individuals in recovery. So we are working actively to help ensure that an individual's mental health and substance use disorder needs and recovery needs are met so that they can be truly functioning, happy individuals in their home and community. So
Thank you,
thank you for
Tahnee.
this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And it sounds like this panel's been a great opportunity for showing the opportunities for crossover and collaborating and getting the information across programs so that the folks that are on the ground in these various programs know about the other individuals that they can tap into at the community level. So Sarah, I'll pass it back to you if we want to do some questions.
Yeah, no, what great information sharing today, and we appreciate all the panelists very much. And we have a few questions, and I'd like to start off with Superintendent Burch. And so, if you do have a video, if all the panelists could turn their videos on right now, that would be great because we can chime in. And the first question is kind of targeting students. Why is showing up for class? Why is attendance really important in high school?
Oh, Sarah, why is attendance important in high school? Oh, come on. Sarah, you just asked that to the guy who is the early childhood guy. So I'm going to say, here's the thing. I would focus on attendance and have pushed attendance all the way down into preschool. And here's why. Indicating to those families how important establishing a routine and how important it is to focus and value education. I say all the time that we have all of these skills that Chancellor Tucker and honestly, it wouldn't matter whether Tahnee, Rhonda, Bonnie were sitting with me, they would probably agree that our high school students, in order to prepare, it's just not the FAFSA, it's just not doing the classes. All of those soft skills that we know are so important to be successful later on in life, attendance is one of those. Being on time, being engaged with your school is so important. And it's more important than just the accountability of being marked absent or present. It's really showing that dedication and that level of maturity to be part of something on an ongoing basis. And I think, one of the things I see and hear Dr. Chancellor or Dr. Tucker talk about oftentimes is our students who transition to college sometimes struggle. We hear her talk about the social emotional, the mental health, the food insecurities. It is so hard to make that transition sometimes. But if you get a child who really is adamant on attendance in high school, you're probably going to have a child being present, being able to reach out and understand where those resources or where those adults are they're going to have or help them, that one caring adult. And I don't see being in college any different. If we can get them present, get them to attend on a regular basis, it's going to be a life-changing for them when they make that transition into higher education.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I speak to students or my nieces and nephews, I always say showing up is half the battle. I mean, you will get opportunities, you will find connections, you will find resources if if you just take that step and you show up, good things will happen. So I couldn't agree with you more. Transitioning to Chancellor Tucker, can you talk about what resources are out there for adults who are wanting to explore college? They've been out of high school for a few years. Maybe they didn't finish high school completely. What are some of the resources that they have to explore college and being a lifelong learner?
Sure. So CFWV.com is used by a lot of high school students, but there actually is a whole section on there for adult learners to help adult learners learn how to transition back into college. The state of West Virginia has really excellent scholarship opportunities for students who are adult learners in the state of West Virginia. So we have both the Higher Education Adult Part-Time Student Grant Award. West Virginia Invests can be used by any adult student, which is the free community and technical college program. Each of our institutions has had different ways that they outreach themselves to adults. At our community colleges, and really when I think about adults, the average age of a community college student is 29 years old. So a lot of adults are going into the community and technical college system. Each of our college campuses has on their campus what we refer to as a TANF coordinator. So that's somebody who's actually employed by DHHR who helps folks figure out how to navigate all of the various programs that are available to help adults be able to be successful. So helps navigate food insecurities. How are you going to be able to put food on your table for yourself and as I think Tahnee mentioned, your kids, because these are people who aren't just worried about themselves, they're worried about their whole family and how they're going to take care of them. We have partnerships with all sorts of different groups around what do we do if my car stops working? how do I get the ability to be able to actually get into the classroom? And so all of the colleges have resources like that. The students just need to go and talk with their student services director to find out exactly what those opportunities are. They vary across the colleges, but I promise you that each of them have things there that will be able to provide support for those adult students.
And I think this is a collective question for the group, and then I'll turn it over to Susie to ask a couple additional questions. But to each of you, how are you getting information into your communities? What are the best strategies that you've seen, whether it's participating in community conversations like 40 Top or your website? What are the best resources? How are you connecting with your communities?
Okay, so my favorite way to connect that we just did was a TikTok video. We did in fact do a TikTok video, but we do a lot of community outreach, whether that is mass mailings in partnership with the superintendent to all high school seniors, or if that's meetings like this, talking to every single group that will allow me to talk in front of them so that we can talk about how important going to college is. And really just getting the word out either at the state house or at localities about what it is why going to college matters, how it will change the lives of your students, of even the people that you work for, and try to encourage folks to think about giving people a hand up.
Absolutely. How about you, Superintendent Burch?
Well, it's interesting. Sarah mentioned the localities. One of the things I continue to say here is, Sarah, I've not done a TikTok video, so I'm already looking at people across the going, what
you haven't done one yet.
Yeah. Okay. So and I don't do social media but here's what I do know. I have children in the system also, and what I say all the time is the closer we can communicate to that family directly, the better. And oftentimes we try here at the State Education Agency, the Department of Education, to do communication out to the public. And there is a portion of the public that will listen to us, but I think it's really, really important and that we really work with the localities, work and figure out how to communicate with the local boards of education, the principals straight down into the schools, the counselors, because even myself, I will go and listen to my children's teachers, counselors, the folks in the community first that are closest to me as a parent before maybe seeking information up at the state level. And I think that's just important for everybody to recognize is that the closer we can get that communication down to the community and those caring adults closest to the students and the families, the more powerful the message can be.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely. Neighbors supporting neighbors, that local level means so much. Bonnie, did you want to add something?
I do. And superintendent is correct. And here's what I've been advocating for county to county, but I think it needs to be a statewide kind of thing. We need to be able to find, particularly the grandparents. The only way, again, I can find them is through the school system. And we proved that in the pilot project. If we would start identifying these children as they're being enrolled, and Kanawha County has started this in pre-K, that who is raising this child? Instead of just guardian and a name, is this a grandparent? Who is this? So that we can reach out to them specifically. And my office has proven this works because Kanawha County provided me with all the names and addresses last fall of those children who were enrolled, who were being raised by grandparents. And I did a mass mailing, which I have the capability to do, and it rendered a great result and impact. So because these grandparents have not ever been identified, and they don't know what to do, and they're afraid of the system, they are afraid of bureaucracy. So they're not, they're a little skittish about being identified. But once they realize they can trust us, then it's all right.
All right. Well, I will turn that back to Susie for a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Thanks, Sarah. So an adult population that we don't talk a lot about are individuals that are reentering from incarceration. And along with that, juveniles that are reentering from being in juvenile facilities. So, my question for anybody on the panel is, what can we do to support either through access to grant funding or supportive services? How can we help these individuals transition into higher education or back into secondary education? The Pell Grant for prisoners, I know that is coming back, but that is, I don't think, going to be really implemented until 2022, 2023. And I know we have a few programs around the state, but what can we do to help people reentering from incarceration or detention?
Well, Susie, I think that for youth that are going to be reentering that have been involved in the juvenile justice system, we do, through our bureau, have a bureau work collaboratively with Debbie Gillespie from the Department of Juvenile Services. And we have regular meetings that identify youth so we know when the youth are going to be coming back to their home, or if it's a grandfamily's home or a foster, whatever the setting is, so that we can work to start linking them to the services that they need. And the same would be true in what I'm saying with adults that are entering back or coming back into society, is to start those planning sessions, those linkages with the criminal justice system, to start planning ahead of time as to what services and supports the individual and their family are going to need as they come back in. Do they have a job? Are they going to have a job? What's it going to be like? How traumatic of a re-entry is that going to be for the youth that are in the home? Mom's been gone for 5 years, 6 years, and now mom's back, and start those services, I would say almost a year prior to being paroled or released, so that, you can get that ball rolling. And again, it takes cross-system collaboration. You start at the top and you work your way down to ensure that that's happening. And I think that West Virginia's made great strides in that area. Just, seeing what we're doing today is another example of how all our systems are starting to come together and talk about, well, we do this and we do that. So, and how can we connect?
Would anyone else like to reply to that question?
Superintendent, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm sorry, but you all are operating a program now that has the support of the governor's office, that really helps folks who are coming out of addiction and transition into training programs, also helps with issues around, I know you were telling me the other day around if folks have a DUI, trying to get their records expunged, et cetera. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. So the governor 2 years ago wanted to create a program called Jobs and Hope. And Jobs and Hope originally started off as those coming out of recovery, how to enter back into the system and create a pathway for them to get back into education and the workforce. It has grown in the last 2 years. It's actually housed here at the Department of Education, and it's in collaboration with our Offices of Diversion and Transition Programs, who oversee our juvenile and adult correctional institution education within those. Jobs and Hopes has expanded a bit. It was nice to hear this morning. I believe one of the speakers spoke of Legal Aid West Virginia. Jobs and Hopes actually provides, right now, I think they're in 5 or 6 counties with Legal Aid West Virginia. They have transition agents across the state, and basically they help a lot of what we're talking about here. They help those coming out of recovery continue the recovery efforts while really navigating the system that many find difficult. So there's a lot of obstacles getting back into education when you come out of the correctional facility or out of recovery. Sometimes that is, I've lost my driver's license due to DUI. We have a direct system now to where we work with them on expungement of that if they show progress. We work with them and folks out of Sarah Tucker's office to help them get back into career technical centers, into college, how to navigate those processes. And the goal was not only to have what we typically have in the high school where you have a counselor helping you with that. This transition agent is your point person for years. And we never wanted to get them aligned up into college or recovery or help with childcare. I think, Sarah, if I'm not mistaken, we even assist with transportation. There's now a program that if you can't get a loan for a vehicle, we will help you through the state get back on your feet, even with a vehicle and tuition. And it's a wonderful program, but the bottom line is similar to what you heard Tahnee talk about, which is have where to go and how to assist them to navigate that system is probably the hardest thing. It's similar to what we said with our students. It's really difficult sometimes to navigate all the moving pieces. Do I go to DHHR for this piece of help? Do I go to Higher Education Policy Commission for this piece of help? So oftentimes what we're seeing here, even this panel is doing, is trying to help streamline that for folks that really need to get these resources. So Jobs and Hopes, you can find it online. There are transition agents that will help anybody, even beyond recovery. If you're an adult and you really are struggling, they will help you also. They're located throughout the state in a partnership with Workforce West Virginia and the Division of Rehabilitative Services. We have a lot of partners. Sarah, I'm probably leaving a few off, but we have direct lines of training into our career technical colleges and our CTD centers.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you brought Jobs and Hope into the conversation. They have done phenomenal work. We work really closely with them with our collegiate recovery peer specialists, and we will have them on a future episode of this particular topic about overcoming barriers to higher education, because they are a key community partner. We'll also have a session on scholarships and scholarships that are available for individuals in recovery from various places. And we will have one specifically to talk more in depth about reentry assistance through to get back into school or trade school, any sort of advanced educational aspirations that folks have that are coming out of incarceration. So Sarah, I'll pass it back to you to wrap it up.
Sure. I just think wonderful information was shared today. We appreciate all the panelists' time and their involvement in this panel. And Brittany will flash up a few slides and you can learn more about the Alliance. And we'll give you some helpful links that you can check out, resources that matter to you and your family. So thanks so much, and everyone stay safe.